Hafides and Mananasizuas to each and every one of you. The Committee on General Operations, Appropriations, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, this morning, today is Monday, June 7th, 2021, and the time is now 8 o'clock. Notices for this budget to the listening audience and to our colleagues was disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on Friday, May 28, 2021, and the second notice was issued on Thursday, June 3rd, and then again on Friday, June 4th. The committee will hear and accept testimonies on Bill 55-36, COR, the Fiscal Year 2022 Appropriations Act as requested by the Governor relative to the Department of Corrections Fiscal Year 2022 Budget request. Joining me for this budget hearing this morning to my left is the Oversight Chair, Senator Jose Pito Terlahi. Also joining me, I have Minority Leader Senator Chris Dueñas and Senator Tony Atta. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining me here this morning. I will give a reminder on all the general rules for this public hearing. The general rules for this budget hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying on behalf of Bill number 55-36 COR relative to the Department of Corrections are invited to the panel. And this morning, I'm going to share with you that I do have the director, Mr. Joe Carbolito, Major Anton Uggan, and then also, I want to say Clarissa Briggs, Therese Tayama, and Pauline Lazama, all from DOC. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my Senator Joseph Agustin's legislative staff your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony may be read, and lengthy testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you are done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of this committee. Question and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individuals testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing by myself as the acting chairperson. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for this proceeding. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and or may be asked to leave or be escorted and removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. For the purposes of this budget hearings, questions or comments from the Committee on Appropriations will be given 2 rounds within each member allotted for 4 minutes. And other questions may be submitted to the committee for submission to the agency or the department for responses. And please state your name and your title for the record. And I see the Sergeant at Arms is here. I asked Sergeant Arms at this time that I asked the panel members from the Department of Corrections to rise for our Sergeant of Arms, Kagwe, to please swear them in.
Can you raise your right hand? Okay. Under penalties of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information that you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, or in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Madam Chair, they're under oath. You may proceed.
At this time, as we now will begin to discuss Bill 55-36 COR, which is the Committee on Rules request by I Maga'hågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, which is an act making the appropriations for the operations of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous provisions and administrative provisions, and this is relative to the Department of Corrections. So at this time, I will open the floor. Mananasitus, Director Carbolito, you may proceed. Please, again, go ahead and state your name for the record, what agency you come from, and then you can begin your testimony. Saina Masi.
Jesus Masi, Madam Speaker. Joseph S. Carbolito, the Director for the Department of Corrections. And I would like to introduce, to my right is Major Anton Algan, he's the Administrative Division Chief. And to my left is Clarice Briggs, she's the Administrative Services Officer for the Department of Corrections. Buenas and half a day, Chairman San Agustin and Madam Chair, as well as the members of the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Department of Corrections fiscal year 2022 budget request. The Department of Corrections is seeking a FY 2022, next slide please, a FY 2022 appropriation level of $24,844,683 for its overall operations. The sum of $23,660,522 is requested from the general fund, and $1,184,161 is requested from the Corrections Revolving Fund and Safe Streets Fund. Approximately $18,353,326 is for personnel, $878,360 for overtime, and $5,307,196 is for operational costs and utilities. An estimate of 60% of the operational costs under the Corrections Revolving Fund are for service providers to provide medical services to inmates and detainees. The remaining are contractual services, supplies, and equipment costs for DOC to provide support to the department in meeting its core duties and responsibilities. Next slide, please. For the Director's Office budget, a total of $2,737,008 is requested for the Director's Office for its fiscal year 2022 operations from the General Fund. This is to fund salaries and benefits for 2 unclassified positions and 8 classified positions. $138,500 is requested for operations, which covers drug testing and miscellaneous items. Utilities costs of $1,860,609 is requested for the department's telephone, power, and water services. There is none for capital outlay this fiscal year. The Director's Office staffing needs are requested as follows: Administrative Assistant, a Property Supply Management Officer, which is currently performed by a Corrections Officer and a Messenger Clerk, a Refrigeration Mechanic 2, Plumber 2, an Automotive Mechanic 2. These are currently being performed by inmates supervised by corrections officers. We also need a Computer Systems Analyst 1. This is being performed collateral duties by a Corrections Social Worker 3, a Parole Officer 2, and a Corrections Major. If filled, they will remove the other civilian staff and security staff assigned to these duties and allow better administrative support to over 200 DOC employees. The budget for the Adult Corrections Facility and the Agustin Detention. A total of $15,786,541. Next slide, please. Next slide. A total of $15,786,541 is requested for both the Adult Corrections Facility and the Agustin Detention Facility for its FY22 operations from the General Fund to fund salaries, benefits, and overtime for a total of 186 uniformed corrections officers. Approximately $808,536 is requested for overtime, This amount may not be sufficient for FY22 fiscal year should there be a shortage of manpower due to military deployment, weekend drills, and personnel on leave. However, the department will continue to do its due diligence to minimize overtime. Staffing needs. In FY 2020 and FY 2021, 52 corrections officers and counting left the department through resignations, retirement, separation by death, lateral transfer, etc. We currently have corrections officer 1 positions still under continuous open recruitment at DOA. DOC submitted for about 30 positions, but we have 55 vacancies. We also have 21 other vacancies for other corrections officers positions. Summary officer assignments, out of the 186 currently, 55% or 102 are assigned to the adult correctional facility, 13% or 23 are at the Hagatna detention facility, 5% or 10 is in special operations response team, also known as SORT, and the remaining 27% are spread out to the other support services. Please refer to the chart provided in our written testimony for details of the distribution of personnel. Next slide. As I indicated, here's the breakdown of the vacancies that we have and the staffing needs up in the slide. Next slide. Casework and Counseling Services Division. A total of 625,217 is requested for Casework and Counseling Services Division for its FY 2022 operations from the general fund for 7 corrections social worker personnel. Staffing needs. We need an additional 4 social workers, 1 corrections social worker 3, 2 social corrections social worker 2, and 1 corrections social worker 1, and 1 administrative assistant and a clerk 3 position. Next slide. A total of, this is the forensic or mental health division. A total of 263,080 is requested for forensic division for its FY22 operations from the general fund for 3 positions. I'd like to make a note that this division will be transferred to the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center with its staff based on the recently executed executive order and MOU by the Governor of Guam. Parole Services Division. A total of 940,589 is requested for Parole Services Division for its FY 2022 operations from the general fund for 8 parole officers. Staffing needs. We need an additional 2 parole officer 2s and 4 parole officer 1s and 1 secretary typist. Next slide. DOC contracts. For FY 2022 budget requests for food services, we're requesting $2,928,216. $2,731,232 will come from the general fund, and $196,984 will be funded with the special funds. A shortfall of $881,406 is projected for FY22. This contract is a 3-year contract that was awarded through the IFB process, or procurement process, and took effect in April 1st in 2020. The other contract that we have is with the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority. It's a consolidated cooperative agreement with DOC. The FY22 funding for GMHA consolidated agreement is for $2,500,000, which will be covered by the Department of Interior Compact Assistance Grant. DOC is also requesting an additional supplemental funding for $60,000 to address the dental needs for DOC inmates and detainees. Although the cooperative agreement with GMH stipulates that GMH will provide dental services, GMH is unable to provide this service due to the unavailability of the dental clinic at the Manila Department of Public Health and Social Services, which was shut down. Dental services would include extractions with initial exam and x-ray prior to extractions and cleaning. The estimated cost per extraction will be higher if surgery is needed. Next slide. Overtime. The overtime level requested is $878,360 for FY22. This may not be sufficient for the entire fiscal year. DOC's goal is to reduce overtime expenditures, but it will be reliant on current and future staffing. Due to the severe staffing shortage of officers caused by resignations, retirements, and continued military deployments, DOC is on a 12-hour schedule with 5 days on, 2 days off. We anticipate an increase in overtime expenditures to previous levels. In FY 2021, $814,928 was appropriated for overtime. Again, due to the department's shortfall on accrued overtime, we had reprogrammed our funds to cover the incurred projected expenditures, which now has an authorized level of $3,049,893. As of 5/17/2021, DOC has expended a total of $2,195,995. And that's, go ahead, next slide. That's it. That concludes our testimony for the Department of Corrections. My staff and I are open to any questions from the committee regarding the department's FY22 budget requests as presented. Thank you. So just Masi.
Jesus Masi, Director Carbolito, before I open the floor, I want to also thank my colleagues who have joined us. Senator Joanne Brown, thank you so very much, and Senator Tello Taitakwi, thank you for joining us this morning. Before I yield over to the Oversight Chair of Department of Corrections, I will ask some questions from the Chairman, who's listed some questions for answering, and it may have been a part of the presentation, but because he is presently not here, I will go ahead and proceed with those questions and hoping you can give us answers to that. So, Director Carbolito or any of the panel members, based on a report provided by the Governor regarding the CARES Act funds, the Department of Correction was approved funding of $2.2 million to include food contract services. Was the entire amount received and expended? What else was the funding used for from the CARES Act?
Yes, Madam Speaker. The whole amount of 2.2 was all expended.
So it was received and expended for the food contract services?
No, it's not all for food service contracts. The CARES Act funding was also covered personnel costs for throughout the pandemic, mainly overtime expenditures.
Thank you very much. Number two, contractual services significantly dropped by $2.7 million or 40% to $4.2 million in DOC's fiscal year 2022 request. what was the reason for the decrease?
Okay, so in '21, we received an increase for personnel costs. And we also received the DOI funding for the GMH consolidated agreement. We're not getting that this year, and we got a reduction on personnel costs also. So we're not getting the consolidated agreement Guam Memorial Hospital contract covered this year, which is 2.5, and then the additional 1.5, I believe, is personnel services that we're not getting this year. And that's, again, based on the projected loss of revenues for fiscal year 2022.
Thank you. There are 9 funded vacancies requested, which is administrative assistants, correction officers 3, correction officer supervisor 1, corrections facility supervisor, and so on, which amounts to the 190,618. What positions are most critical?
I believe all the positions that we indicated on our vacancies are all critical, especially the frontline positions. When you talk about corrections officers, ones, and then the management positions, I'm truly understaffed with management positions to, as far as leadership is concerned, to manage the 200 plus employees that I have at the Department of Corrections. So those are much needed positions to be filled. I've made this clear from the very get-go when I first came in as a director that I wanted to fill these management positions, and I've done so. I've promoted personnel. I had 35 promotions that happened last fiscal year that were appropriated, and then we also hired over 71 corrections officers. The problem is I continue to lose them just as much as I recruit them.
Okay. Can you share with me, Director Carbolito, the status of the new prison?
I'm sorry?
What is the status of the new prison? Are there any,
You're referring to the master plan that's ongoing for the new prison facility.
say that again, I apologize,
So-
Director.
You're referring to the master plan for the new prison, correct?
I'm referring to the status of a new prison.
Yes.
Is-
We're currently at the phase where we've procured $250,000 through the Department of Interior funding, federal funding. And that's to get the master plan going for that new prison facility that you're referring to, okay? That's a 14-phase process, okay? It's been awarded already to a vendor, an off-island vendor, and that's ongoing. I think we've already completed 2 phases out of the 14 phases. That's where we're at right now. I can have Major Uggan elaborate a little bit on that. He's in charge of that project.
Major,
Good morning.
good morning.
The master plan also it does encompass a new design for a new correctional facility. Like the director said, that's still ongoing. The vendor will be back on island at the end of this month to continue the process. We're hoping to have the final report done in August. Preferably by the middle part of August, we should have the report done to present to the senators and to the governor on the direction that the Department of Corrections would like to take in its, the design and build of its new prison. So again, that process is ongoing. And again, by August, we should have a better picture of where we want to be in the future with the prison.
Thank you very much, Major Anton. Before we proceed, I do recognize the Coming of Deputy Director Camacho. Sergeant of Arms, if you may, please. To the swearing.
If you can please rise and raise your right hand. Please stand up. Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information that you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, or in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Madam Chair, you may proceed.
Si Diyos Mahal, si Sergeant of Arms. We'll proceed. Good morning, Deputy Director. What is the status of the overtime at DOC? I know earlier you brought it up again, so I just want to make sure you share with us the overtime at DOC. What is the status?
We're all caught up with our overtime currently. We've processed all the overtime that has been owed to employees, and we're all caught up. We have paid all the overtime up to date.
So for this quarter, everything is caught up, even prior overtimes, they've all been caught up to date?
That's correct.
Thank you. What is, wait, I apologize. With the completion of the new cycle, will this help decrease overtime?
Madam Speaker, as I indicated again, we hired, I believe it was like 60 plus recruitments that we had since FY20 when I came in. And that was through the fast track process that we did based on the need at the time. And we also had some reemployments that we rehired. However, we're losing officers as we speak. I sign resignations and GG1s for resignations on almost a weekly basis. It's hard to continue hiring when only to see officers leave again. You know, so the attrition rate is very bad. Needless to say, I can't overemphasize that we're losing more and more people as much as we're hiring. So the staffing, we need to right size it for the overtime to be, under control. Right now, it's not under control. We're continuing to expend a lot of money on overtime only because we're understaffed. I tried to address that when I first came in, and the governor supported my what I wanted to do, which was recruit continuously. We are trying to recruit continuously as we speak also. We still have open recruitment at the Department of Corrections. We submitted for 30 more recruitment positions, 30 more GG1s. We have 55 openings, but due to the loss in revenues or the projected loss in revenues, right? Some of those things are right now on hold. Yes, the open recruitments are at DOA, but they're pending and they're on hold because of the financial situation that we're in, so to speak. So I always say this, Madam Speaker, that the overtime is a symptom of the actual problem, the underlying problem. The underlying problem is right sizing. It's a shortage of staff. That's the biggest problem, and that's the underlying problem that causes the symptom of overtime to continue.
Thank you. Another question by the chair is, what is the status of the MOU with behavioral health in regards to the transfer over the 3 Department of Corrections staff, and how will this affect the personnel? I know you spoke about it, but again, for the reiteration, the transfer from of the MOU to behavioral health.
There's really no effect on employees. They're just being moved from DOC to Guam Behavioral. Names are being transferred and the funding. But the annex is there. That's where they're going to be working, just under the name Guam Behavioral Health. But they're still going to be assigned to the Department of Corrections at the annex.
Thank you. Appreciate that answer. Are there any prior year outstanding obligations to include salaries, increments, pay adjustments, reclassifications, etc.? If so, what are the amounts?
We have prior year obligations for personnel. We owe COVID hazardous pay that were, I think, 6 pay periods. Yeah? We owe like about 400,000, and we had to cease the payments of the COVID hazardous pay because of the CARES Act monies running out right at the end of the last fiscal year sometime. We were paying it out until the monies ran out. So we had to put a hold on that until we get more monies available to continue to pay that.
So you're looking at 400,000 now. You stopped paying because the money was running very low. How far back are you delayed on the hazardous pay? Today is June.
Yes, we paid up to December, to last year December. So we owe for January and February. So all the way from January to February, it was still 25%. It changed in February because the governor changed the 25% and made it 10% because of the level of exposure going down.
Thank you. Is DOC receiving any federal funding? If so, what are the amounts and what will they be used for?
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, one more time.
His question is Department of Corrections receiving any federal funding? If so, what are the amounts and what will they be used for?
Yes, we're receiving we're covering the Guam Memorial Hospital consolidated agreement with the medical services with Department of Interior funds. That's 2.5 million.
Say that again, Director Joe. I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
The contract for the Guam Memorial Hospital for medical services, that's being covered by the Department of Interior federal funding for 2.5 million. We also received some grant money through GIDA, the community grant, for about 49,000, if I'm not mistaken. And that's for the RSAT, our Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Program that we have ongoing right now for about 18 inmates. That will cover tuition and books for them to go through the Guam Trades Academy.
Thank you. And how has the pandemic affected DOC's turnover rate, and what has management done to consider the continuity of its critical operations?
It has, needless to say, we've been out there like boots on the ground through this pandemic, trying to manage and mitigate as much as we can with the ongoing pandemic, and we haven't stopped. We had the critical outbreak in November, I believe, where half of our department was out being infected by COVID. Our inmate population was highly infected. I was running around by myself at times with one major trying to do everything because of the infection rate that we had. It was difficult, okay, but we managed to get through it, and we haven't let our guards down. Our mitigation efforts continue as we speak. Our quarantine facility is still in effect. Our testing for every arrestee that comes into our facility down at the Guåhan detention facility is still there. The system or the mechanisms in place are still in effect, and we're going to continue that effort until we believe that it's safe, to pull back. But until that time comes, we're continuing to go with everything that we have from the very beginning, as when this COVID pandemic came about. We're trying as much as possible not to go back to that same outbreak that we experienced, and I'm very vocal about it with my employees. We're trying to get everybody vaccinated to the point where I feel comfortable to lift some of the restrictions. We are, I believe, at 70% vaccination with our prisoner population, and we're over 50%, if not 60%, with our employees. We're continuing to educate, that campaign of education and awareness for our employees and prisoners to try to get that number up to where I would like to see it at least at 85%, where I would feel a little bit more comfortable in easing down on some of the restrictions.
Thank you. Joining us also, colleagues, is Senator Sabina Parrish. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Director Carbolito, let me go back to a note that I have here. In November of last year, a 25% differential pay for officers of the Department of Corrections and Department of Youth Affairs was established to address challenges in recruitment and retention in Guam's correctional facilities. And because of their role in the COVID-19 response, they are also entitled to additional differential pay. However, it was reported in the media on June 1st that December 5th and the last time DOC paid out the hazard and differential pay. We have heard back and forth between DOA and other Government of Guam agencies regarding the reason for the backlog. However, this comes at the expense of our frontline employees. When does DOC plan on paying the hazardous and differential pay? And does the agency need additional human resource support to ensure that they are paid out on a timely manner? If you can give me a reiteration on that.
Yes, I've addressed that to the governor, and she's of course in support of. She's the most supportive as far as getting all the payments due to our employees paid out. That's why we're paid out with the overtime. But the COVID-19 pay, that's reliant on federal funding, only because it's related to the COVID pandemic. So I don't have the budget to pay that currently through the general funds, but that's being worked on as far as the payments for the remainder of starting January and February. I've been working on that to try and get that paid, Madam Speaker. I've been on top of that situation. Like I said, it's just a matter of getting the funding into the account.
Well, with the new seed funding coming in with the RRP, there's no commitment from the administration to bring more resources into DOC for this?
Yes, like I said, I've spoken to the governor about it, and she is committed to paying that COVID hazardous pay.
Okay. I'll ask another question regarding the 25% differential pay for corrections officers. While DOC was able to hire 60 new recruits this past year, it also lost 43 officers. How many of these losses occurred after the differential pay was implemented? Are there other incentive plans the agency is looking into to address your staffing issues? And again, a reiteration, please.
Promotions, recruitment, and this 25% corrections pay that we came up with was supposed to address, you know, the retention of officers, especially the 25% corrections pay. That has not come to fruition yet, but we're working on that. We're trying to get the monies available again to pay to get that paid. Everything is still in the process, and I'm trying my best to get it going through what it needs to get through to make it possible.
Okay, Director Carbolito, the Department of Corrections is looking at a 9.8 decrease in its fiscal year 2022 budget compared to the fiscal year 2021. Given the concerns with staffing and your already limited resources, where does DOC plan to cut? And does the agency plan to utilize any federal grants to supplement this budget, if any?
Again, I've brought this to the attention of to the governor already on our shortfalls. We for this fiscal year, we had to defund and freeze all the vacancies. We funded just the warm bodies. That's how we got, you know, to this figure that we're presenting to you today. However, we've already brought it up to the governor's intention, and she's aware of the shortage. Based on, and again, the projections that we see today that we're requesting for was projected based on the loss of revenues that was, you know, as a result of the pandemic. So I'm very optimistic that the shortfalls will be covered.
Thank you, Director. One last question from this. According to the Budget's Digest, Department of Correction intends to open another housing unit. Has a timeline been established for this plan, and is there an estimated cost to this expansion?
Which one, Madam Speaker? I'm sorry.
I understand that you guys have another a plan to open another housing unit. Is that correct?
That housing unit that you're referring to, I believe, is the Guam Behavioral Annex, which is Post 7. That's been, yes, that's been actually there. That was a housing unit that was shut down for one reason or another, and we refurbished it and stood it back up for our isolation facility. That was our designated isolation facility during the pandemic, but it's since been cleared out and now operating as the Jipwick Annex.
Okay, so based on that, you earlier spoke about it receiving federal funding, right?
Yes.
So are there going to be any other local funds expended for this program? Or is that is that the MOU with behavioral health?
That's part of the MOU with the Guam Behavioral Health, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. At this time, Director Carbolito, I will yield to the Oversight Chair. Senator Chalahi, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to thank the panel for their participation on this budget hearing, and I also want to thank my colleagues that are here present, and I know they're going to be asking questions. First off, I just want to thank the chairman, the vice speaker, for actually the questions that I wanted to ask have already been addressed by the vice speaker, and I thank you very much. And I also want to thank you, Joe, for your budget presentation, and I just want to concentrate on the overall department budget. And like, you know, fiscal year 2021, there's like over 26,000 that was, I think, given to DOC, and on fiscal year 2022, you requested for only 23,000. That's a variance of 2 million, or 23 million. That's a variance of 2,896,956, and I thank you for that. Also, on the only increase on your budget is the general fund, which is only like 216. We gave you like 904 in fiscal 904,000 in fiscal year 2021, 117, and on fiscal 2022 we gave you 1,121,000 plus, and actually the increase on that is actually 216,000. Thank you for that again. Also on the Safe Street Fund, in fiscal year 2021, we gave you 67,224, and fiscal 2022, you only used 63,000, or you only requested for 62,142, a variance of 4,082, and I thank you for that. And the total variance for your overall department, which is a decrease, is 2,684,136, and I certainly congratulate you for doing that. Other than the questions that was addressed by the vice speaker, is I think you answered the overtime that has not been paid, you know, and you answered that. And I want to ask you, do you have enough PPEs to meet your mission, Mr. Director?
Yes.
You have. That's
yes,
all
sir.
that I need.
We do.
What additional funding did you request for the administration in as far as money for PPAs or other items necessary to meet your mission? But you already answered that you do have enough money to meet the PPE requirements to accomplish your mission. And I thank you for that. Mr. Director, are there any items on your list that we should discuss on this hearing that we haven't, that the Vice Speaker hasn't addressed, and that we want to just share your thoughts? If you can share your thoughts about the question that I just asked you.
No, Senator, I've pretty much addressed everything in the submission that we turned in.
Okay. And DOC has done a tremendous job in keeping our inmates and detainees relatively safe from the COVID-19 pandemic. And Mr. Director, how are you able to do this? Are you able to lessen the incidents, or are you still working on it, or are we sound in our plans to make sure that you know the personnel and the inmates and everybody else up there is covered through your program?
I'm sorry, what was the question, Senator?
Does DOC has done, well, let me just, I just want to commend you for keeping our inmates and detainees relatively safe from the COVID-19. I just wanted to know, how are you able to do this?
We've, like I stated earlier, we continue our preventive measures that we started out with through the pandemic. and that has not been, we've lifted some, we've managed to have incoming through drive-throughs, right? Just to try to mitigate the factor with the inmates or the prisoners, getting anxiety because of being, confined for so long and not being let out, no visitations, right? Those are all part of the pandemic mitigation plan or operations plan. But we've opened up drive-through incomings for them to receive through their families in recent months. And we've been doing that now on a monthly basis. And we're going to continue to do that until we feel that it's safe to open up visitation. And visitation won't happen until, I believe, like I said, I feel comfortable at maybe 85% of our prison population being vaccinated.
Thank you, Joe. Last year, Joe, we passed the bill on the commissary. I initiated that program, talking with Major Ogden, and I just want to know, when are we going to start the commissary project or program?
Yes, Senator, that's right now at GSA. It's still going through the procurement process. It's still being vetted. But we have the mechanisms in place. We're ready to go as soon as it clears the procurement process.
Because last year, I think that's one of the questions that I asked is, what is the hold up on the bidding process with GSA, and have you gotten any word from GSA when that thing's gonna come out?
Major, you wanna, or 02? You wanna give an update on that?
Hello. Good morning, sir. We've met with GSA twice on the same issue, and we have already drafted up the proposal for the procurement process, the bidding process. It's now just up to GSA to push that bidding process through. But we've had several conversations regarding it, and it's going to be more or less a system in which we don't have to have the commissary in the facility itself. It's going to be through an internet ordering process, and in collaboration with the vendor and the families. And so the inmates will use a station, a centralized station, to order these products, whether it be sundry items or what have you. But we have met with them, and it's within their area of expertise that they're trying to resolve it. We've also talked about the fire sprinkler system and other areas that are pending with the GSA. So we have addressed the issue. We're just waiting for them to come through.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Deputy Director. There has been report that some of your detainees and inmates have not had access to, PayTel, and to engage, with your lawyers. And I understand it's a complex issue. And I want to thank the Vice Speaker for introducing a bill regarding that, supporting the inmates to obtain a legal counsel, an attorney, to pursue whatever they need to pursue regarding their case, or what they need in as far as a legal representative that they need. So I want to thank the Vice Speaker for doing that. And but is there anything that preclude us from providing additional lines free of charge so that our inmates can speak to their legal representative, as it is within their constitutional rights to do so?
Yes, Senator. I know we've had several discussions, many discussions with especially with the Public Defender's Office, which of course has, been vocal about this issue. We've addressed most of these issues. I know that they even have several options to avail to their clients. There's a current directive that's out pretty much giving them all those options for attorney-client visitations. They can come in person. They just need to call in advance to make arrangements, and we will allow them to come in person. There's supposed to be a line that's dedicated in case they can't afford it for the indigent clients. And then we also have the virtual stations that they can avail to. So I'm not sure what else we can do, but we've addressed that so many times already. We've had so many discussions with the Public Defender's Office.
Okay, and I hope that bill that was introduced by our Vice Speaker, are we scheduled, Madam Vice, for that to be placed on the floor?
Yes.
And I guess I'm a co-sponsor for that also?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that bill, and we, that option, of course, is we're open to that. We don't if the vendor is willing to work with us in providing that free option for that for those clients, those indigent clients that they're referring to, then we're all for it. We're in support of it.
Last year during the one of the sessions, when we were discussing the transfer of money from one agency to another agency, and at that time we found out that the Department of Correction owes Guam Memorial, and I guess the Vice Speaker already explained this, and you gave your answer. And it was like, what, 2.2 million or 2.5 million that you owe the hospital at that point in time. But then later on, I think DOI came in and, you addressed that issue, and I guess DOI is going to complete that payment to the hospital. And I wanted to find out, did you get the $1 million or did you get it or not? And what did you do? If you got the $1 million, what did you do with that? Because I remembered the speaker, Speaker Teresa Lai, made a motion to pay the hospital. And I just kind of go along with that because, DOC owes like 2.2 million or something like that, and I kind of just agree with that. And then, it's fortunate that, DOI is willing to cover what you owe to the hospital.
So I'm not sure about that $1 million that you're referring to specifically, Senator, but whatever monies that we get that's funded for that specific contract, it should have been used for...
Actually,
yes.
the $1 million was taken out of your budget. Did they took out the $1 million, or did you give it to GMH, or it stays with your budget?
Everything that's appropriated for GMH, the contract for medical services, is paid for medical services,
Okay.
Senator. I can assure you that.
Okay, Mr. Director, is there anything that you want to address in as far as what we can do to satisfy your operation, and in as far as the budget is concerned? Is there anything in need that you want to address to the panel here? And how much do you think?
The needs, I clearly indicated all the needs already in my submission and my presentation, Senator. So thank you again for allowing me to address that. But everything that pretty much we're going to be short on is in our budget, and that's mainly staffing needs.
Have you had any word from anybody out there in regards to correctional reservists? Because I'm planning to do a bill on that one.
Yes, that the corrections reserve program that the bill that, or the law that you passed on that's already actually we have a policy in that's already been in effect. Major, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, Senators, we do have a law was passed allowing DOC to create a corrections reserve program. We worked on our policies and procedures. We haven't stand up the whole program yet. We've been in the last year, we've kind of been dealing with this COVID situation, and we had several recruit academies going on. They just graduated in December, but that is something, again, we're going to look at. Trying to augment our staff with reserve personnel, but I think our main focus right now is trying to hire the full-time employees, because that's where the need really is on the full-time correction officers.
Thank you, Major. Mr. Director, what is your the numbers you expect for officers to retire at DOC? I'm not sure if the Vice Speaker spoke about that, about the numbers of people that you expect to retire.
That's submitted that has made it known, for retirement. 7? Retirement. How many people are planning on retiring? We had 2 that recently retired, and those are high-ranking command staff officers, a captain and a major, and those positions again need to be filled. We've submitted what I've done since I've been in is every time we have a retirement or a resignation, I submit the GG1s right away for recruitment or to replace those bodies. I think there's 2 more that I'm aware of that have already made it known that they'll be retiring this year. I think one in June or July, and that's all that I'm aware of.
So that's about how many?
4.
At least 4.
We had 2, and then 2 more probably made it known that they're going to retire.
And you have about 55 openings, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, Senator.
something like that. Okay. Madam Chair, thank you very much. Panel, that concludes my questioning to each and every one of you, and thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Senator Pito Chalahi. Senator Paris, I understand you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to the panel. A lot of the questions are asked already. In hearing the discussion, I'm very concerned about the attrition rate of the people that you hire, and maybe if you can expound, Director Carbolito, about what are the potential reasons or causes for the quick turnaround.
Well, and I know it's been made known out there already that of course the pay issue, right, is one of the main factors, and I think Senator Moylan has brought about a bill that tried to address that. But in addition to the pay, if you really look at the work, the job itself, compared to other law enforcement agencies, I've walked down the tunnel in these line positions here and these units that they man. It's a very, very difficult job to do. It takes a special person to stand there 12 to 16 hours in front of all these inmates and all the hazards that they have to go through, okay? Compared to other law enforcement agencies, even if you give them the same pay, you standardize the pay for all law enforcement, I'd rather go to another law enforcement agency and work there than to stand at DOC and work the kind of job that these guys do. Personally, I wouldn't want to do it. And I'm a 30-year GPD career officer. But looking and experiencing what these officers go through on a daily basis, standing this job, it's a difficult job to do. You know, they're exposed to all the different hazards. And I've made that clear. And that's why this 25% corrections incentive pay is now being presented. And I'm hoping that it would be implemented soon. It's actually already all in process. It's in progress. We just need the money to get it going. The governor supports this because she's at the front of all this. We had all these discussions. She's aware of all my concerns, and she truly supports the 25% corrections pay. She made this happen, and I told her that's what is needed to retain officers. Otherwise, we can't compete with the other law enforcement agencies. There's no way that you're going to put a standardized pay or an equal pay to other law enforcement agencies and expect these guys to stay at DOC when the grass would, or the safety and health and wellness would be much better in the other areas, the other law enforcement areas. I'd rather be out there patrolling the streets than to be stuck with 80 inmates, you know, in a hazardous environment. At least I can, you know, I'm free to roam around and I don't have to stand there. So that's one of the main issues that I see, you know, on retention with these officers. As soon as we put them through the recruitment process and the training, they finish the training and they're on the job and they start feeling the adversities that the job entails, I see resignations on my desk. They didn't expect what was coming, what they think might entail, you know, with the job that they're going to be going through, until they actually go in there and feel it. So that's the problem that I see. It's not just the pay, it's the job description itself and what it entails.
Thank you for that response. Yeah, I think the training too maybe can provide, you know, that realism. I don't know if that's going to be helpful if prior to them joining, that gradual adjustment I think might be needed. But also, is there any mental health services provided to Department of Corrections? I know GPD, they have a program. Is there already a program that exists for Department of Correction as well?
No, not for employees, not for employees. The mental health or forensics division that we do have in place is for prisoners, services for prisoners. So we would have to separately procure that and have them see a psychologist if needed, you know, outside of the services that we do have currently.
Okay, thank you. And in regards to the prison population, what percentage is drug-related? What percentage is due to offenses from drugs?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, you know, perhaps there's a way to manage the prison population and, you know, more effectively. If, you know, I noticed in your presentation you have a category for maintenance of prisoners off island Bureau of Prisons, and that's basically to separate the more difficult ones. In your
Yes,
presentation.
yeah,
And-
yes, we do have different levels of, the different units and the different levels of security. If that's what you're referring to. So, of course, those with drug problems are being addressed by our casework when they make their assessments, right? The needs assessment is done right from the get-go when they first enter into our prison population. And then they're closely monitored and tracked throughout. So the needs throughout their prison term are addressed by our casework. And we have the RSAT the RSAT program, which is the Residential Substance Abuse program. And they're vetted and they're given the opportunity to go through this program if they qualify or they're eligible based on their assessment.
Thank you. I guess what I'm trying to drive at is maybe there's perhaps a more effective way for managing the population, and that can help reduce, the attrition rate, if that's possible. Have you seen a way to manage the prison so that it can more effectively utilize the personnel?
That would be a difficult answer to give because yes, we have the different areas, right? But we don't we don't pick and choose which employees are assigned to the different areas. It just depends on every given day. And some officers, if you're referring to, their mental stability, right, on how they handle the different security level posts that they're assigned to, it just depends on the officers.
Thank you. And for this maintenance of prisoners off island, this is something I've just noticed. Is this something new, or has this been has this been utilized in the past?
The off-island transfers?
Yes.
No, it's been there. We have, I think currently we have 12 off-island.
Okay, thanks. And then one more question. This is for the ASO. As far as so I noticed in the budget proposal, there are 5 IFBs that are expected to be done in 2022. Is that accurate? You're planning to do 5 IFBs?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so in the
Information
proposal,
for
the budget proposal, administrative support, it mentions workload output. And in that sheet, it mentions there were 5 IFBs that were projected to be done in 2022. Is that accurate, or is there more?
Information for bids, do we have,
Yeah.
is there 5 information?
Invitation for bids.
No, the information for bid, the only ones that I am aware of is the commissary and the fire suppression.
Okay. So, yeah, in the 2020, there was 2, and then 2021, there were 5, and then projected is another 5. So yeah, as far as also that brings to mind the food services, I believe that was under emergency procurement. Are you planning to prepare as an invitation for bid?
Actually, that's already awarded.
Already awarded. Okay, so it's off the emergency procurement?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, Senator, it's no longer an emergency procurement. It's a 3-year contract.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for your responses, and thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sabina. Minority Leader, you're recognized at this time.
Sijusmasi, Madam Chair. Good morning, Director Carbalito and Major Anton, and your ASO. Thank you for being here. So I dubbed this my standard question. I hope I don't get the standard answer. Have you requested any rescue plan funds? And if so, what for?
Yes, we have, Senator. We have requested a supplemental budget request to the governor's office. That is currently under review. We have not received anything back as far as how much we're going to be receiving, but we have submitted our needs.
Is it for personnel, capital improvement, or?
The bulk of it is for personnel costs.
Okay. Thank you for your straightforwardness. We appreciate that. I'm not going to go into amounts because I think it's immaterial at this point. But it's important to know that you've gone forward and made that request, and I appreciate your answer.
Yes.
Director, I think that I don't want to go into a whole bunch of things with regard to your operation. First of all, I want to thank you and your team. It looks as though your response to the COVID situation in protecting the entire community because of the outbreak that you had was very successful. And that's very meaningful, of course, to everyone. Simply because of your confinement issue, it's ripe for a situation that could have made it much more difficult for the community. So I want to congratulate your team because I think you guys have done a good job and continue to maintain the suppression of that, COVID possibility in terms of getting out to the public. So congratulations to your team. I want to concentrate on this, Chief, because I think that you've got to solve this issue with regard to this staffing revolving door. And I'm going to offer what I think, because I was there before, of course, in a much smaller organization, Department of Youth Affairs. And maybe Major can address this. I was hoping, maybe our deputy had to step out, but maybe this is a three-part question in trying to get to the solution of this issue. Many times at Department of Youth Affairs, my officers were so burnt out, they didn't want overtime anymore because it was affecting their health, it was affecting their quality of life, and it got to the point that no matter how much money they took home, it didn't matter anymore because their quality of life suffered and their families' quality of life suffered because the money was meaningless. So I see this situation of a cycle of overtime and manpower issues. Let's just face it, they're simply intertwined. You cannot run an operation without overtime with your needs, without the manpower. You're going to have the overtime. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe the ASO can address this. If you solve your manpower issue, it's almost negligible because your overtime is so high. So I guess maybe I'll switch to Major while the deputy's away. Has this post-commission and its work, I think the deputy is the chairman for that, right? I know that there's legislation that's pending to solve this, but it sounds like there's a bigger issue of recruitment, retention. I know you addressed this, Chief, that it probably has a lot to do with the environment, but I don't know if it's changed that much, but during the time that I was at Department of Youth Affairs, there was a level still of pride in that job. And I remember working with SORT, I remember working with so many members of DOC, they still, that job meant something to them. Yes, it's not a sexy job, it's not a great job, you deal with a lot of stuff, but they still love that job and their service to the community. So, Major, has there been a change in terms of maybe the applicants or how do we solve this problem?
Senator, this June will be 27 years at DOC. And you're correct, it's not all about the overtime and it's all not about the money because some officers really don't want to work overtime. We've had quite a few that left because of overtime. They're not spending time with their family and they're having marital issues, and the only thing to save it was to leave the job. In fact, we lost one 2 weeks ago, and when I sat down and I spoke to him, I said, well, why are you leaving? Because his pay is going to be almost half of what he makes now. And he says, it's just, sir, I don't have a life. I don't, you're working 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. It just doesn't have a life. And a lot of them are just tired of it. Plus, if you don't have enough officers on post, Senator, and you're doing the job of what 2 or 3 people should be doing, that's a lot of stress on your body trying to deal with these populations and not having the right manpower. And some of them get really tired of that too, going in every day, facing the same inmates with very little resources. Our buildings are old, our facility is old. And for those of you that's been up there, 18 different housing units, it's enormous. It's an enormous operation, right? And you got people that don't want to be there. These are inmates. These people, are addicted to drugs. They have all their other issues that they bring with them. And they're not exactly friendly user at sometimes. And you should have 3 or 4 officers and you only got 1 or 2. And you bring in extra officers, we could, but then the overtime gets enormous again, and then they're more exhausted. And so some of them just decide, I love this job, but I got to think of my health and my family, and they leave, and some have left. We've lost quite a few to the Navy Police, where they actually get more money and less hours. We've lost some to GPD on the new cycle that's going on. We've lost some to Guam Fire. A few went active military. They decided to go active military. It's just a whole host of different issues, and money is one option, of course. That's, but at some point it also becomes having the right staffing levels. And we've done good as far as promoting, because we haven't had any promotions in several years. And so we were able to promote over 30 people, and so the morale went up on them. You see their pride has gone up. There are some that were considering retiring have now stayed on board because they were able to move up in rank, and they've able to, but it's still an ongoing process. We still have a lot more of CO1s that are going on 20 years as a CO1. 20 years as a CO1, because we have no more promotions after that. We're very limited. And so some of them just decide, I'm going to wait 2 years for a 64-cent increment. Maybe I can go over to this other agency over here, do a lateral transfer, and make more money. And we've had some right out of the academy. They come on board with a master's degree. We had a guy with a master's degree, right? And OJT, he did the academy, was fine. The minute we put him in the housing unit and reality sit in on what he's going to be working with, he just came down and said, sir, this is just not for me. This is not. I begged him to stay on board. I said, just give it a try. Hang in there. It wasn't for me either. The first day I walked in there, I prayed another law enforcement called me. I didn't want to stay, but I did. And I tried to convince him, but it just wasn't for him, and they got to do what makes them happy. And if it ain't for them, then, I wish them well and with their career, but a lot of them it's just not for them, sir. It just takes a lot to stay as long as we have. It is. And so money is one issue, but it's a whole bigger issue. That's why when we do our new prison and we are able to get a new facility that's properly designed with the right security cameras and all these other security issues that we need, and we put the right amount of officers on the post to work with each other as far as with the population, they'll feel more safe, they'll feel more secure, and they'll be more willing to come to work. And I think that's the other step in the future, is just getting a right facility. I know a lot of you have been up there and you've seen it. It's tough. It's old, it's run down. Maintenance is we fix one thing, it breaks the next day. We're just constantly trying to keep that place running. And that's why our staffing with the plumbing and the electrician or the aircon man, because our aircons, we have a big problem with aircons going down, and that's why that's all very important to us as far as providing, not just for the inmates, but for the staff that call that place, their second home. Because some of them they see the inmates more than their kids. Just put it that way. And it's tough. But I commend all of them for sticking in there, and our numbers have improved. We were down to 150. We got up to over 200 something. I think we're down to 180 something, almost 190 now, but still not where we need to be. So hopefully this body can help us with that.
Thank you. So Chief, I'm not gonna offer to tell you how to do your job, but I'm gonna make a suggestion. I think you've clearly got two things on your hands, and thanks, Major, and the update that you're 2 steps through the issue of getting through the finalization of the master plan going forward, and of course, subsequent would be the funding and how that would go forward to build the new prison. I commend you for that. Chief, I think you need to really sit down with the governor again and make a critical decision, working with your team, to do massive recruitment. And make sure the budget's there for it. Because as far as I'm concerned, Chief, you continue to go down this road, you're going to get to a point of being in a state of emergency. There's no question about it. If you can't fix this problem. And the thing is the money's there. You're exchanging overtime for manpower. Something's got to change. Now, obviously, the staff that are coming in have a problem with the outlook. They don't see the future. And that's the problem. You're right, they see greener pastures, but they don't see a greener pasture in front of them. So I think somehow, collectively, the team at DOC is going to have to get support and get behind the fact that this is just short term. Come on, guys, hang in there. Let's get the incentive pay for them. Let's keep the troops on board so we can reduce the overtime. Have the guys feel more secure downrange, have a little bit more comfort level, work a little bit less hours, and see the future in securing our island and making sure those who have committed crimes and that have the duty to do the time remain where they remain so that the public is safe. You have a critical mission here. And so I'm just going to challenge you to that and to say that, there's no way for us to be Santa Claus here. We can't make any promises. But what I'm seeing structurally within your budget is the money's there, if the commitment's there. And to fund those officers and to make sure that the level of funding is secure in your critical role, that it has to stay there and you have to have this kind of recruitment that lets your recruits coming in know there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I think we can sit here and we can ask you 10 different questions about procurement and the like, and I'm not saying that's not right. I'm just saying you gotta solve this, guys. And I know you're committed to it. I'm not admonishing you. What I'm saying is this has got to be an all hands on deck. Because I just think that that's a critical feature. And anything, I know, like I said, there's proposals on the table. Anything we can do, but we've got to solve this problem. Jesus Masi, Madam Chair. Thanks, Chief. If you got some comments, go ahead, Chief.
Thank you.
No, Senator.
Thank you, Minority Leader. Senator Tony Hera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Director, you mentioned that the DOI was taking care of your prior obligations with GMH. Do you have any other prior obligations?
The only ones that I am aware of is we also have medical bills that are still pending. We understand that that's going to be reimbursed through federal funding, through FEMA. I think it's like $556,000, if I'm not mistaken. And then we still have the COVID hazard pay that's pending for employees.
Yeah. And then how about other vendor payments? Do you have any other prior vendor payments due?
We are anticipating a shortfall for food services coming up. We're projecting a shortfall only because of the increase that we had to procure through GSA from the vendor's request. It's 2.7 million, but that has gone up over 3 million, if I'm not mistaken now, because of the pandemic and the cost of products that they had to incur.
I see. And the oversight chair was, Senator Pito was asking about PPEs. Do you have air filtration systems in your facilities?
No, we don't.
And did you request for any?
That's part of the request that we submitted during the start of the pandemic.
So they gave you masks and gloves, but they didn't give you any air filtration units?
It's harder to procure that and bring in. From my understanding, I've been following through with that, and that has never materialized. I'm not sure if it's because of the demand, so to speak, at that point in time when we were going through the pandemic, but it was part of our submission.
And that submission was last year?
Maybe early on in the
And
during
still,
pandemic.
and they
It's
still haven't filled that
that-
request?
That's correct. I don't know where we at on that. Okay, so the CARES Act money ran out, so we couldn't procure it, we couldn't pay for it was already in the process, but it stopped because of the lack of funding through the CARES Act.
And you didn't put it into your budget request or into the ARP funding request that you submitted to the governor for,
Yes, that's all part of it.
which one, into the budget request? Because I didn't see
The
anything for...
supplemental.
On the supplemental?
Yeah, for the ARP.
I see, okay. You know, on your budget request, I see that you had a decrease of $98,148 for fleet vehicle fuel. So you're not requesting anything this year for fuel?
That will be taken care of with the corrections revolving fund, the special funds.
I see, okay. And that would take care of your 108, like your 8 runs per day that you approximately do for, and that will cover it?
It will take care of the fuel, yes.
Okay, that's great to hear. And then also I see on your budget request, you had a reduction of $25,000 for uniform allowance. What is that attributed to?
Again, that's based on the projected shortfalls initially, but that should be covered with the corrections revolving fund or the special funds.
As well, okay. That's got that. You mentioned that you did fast-track recruitment. Are you still currently doing fast-track recruitments for DOC officers?
Everything is right now at a halt down at DOA on recruitment. Only because of the financial situation based on the pandemic. So we did submit 30 more GG1s. That's all pending down at DOA. Even though we do have 55, but we submitted for 30 currently. And as I said earlier, we continue to lose officers. So every time we lose officers, we submit GG1s. That's why those vacancies continue to open up.
I understand, but the commitment from the governor was that whatever DOC needs, DOC is going to get. So I'm just kind of taken back that you submitted and it's on hold now for 30 additional officers, knowing that you guys have a shortfall of officers that is making your overtime a third of what your overall budget is, and you're wearing your guys out constantly because there's no replacements for them. So I just want to know if it's still the commitment of this administration to provide the officers that DOC needs to ensure that your people are taken care of and your agency is taken care of, and those that you guys care for are taken care of.
I've been assured by the governor that that is one of the priorities, is to fund the vacancies that we do have. It was only, like I said, the initial budget submission was based on shortfalls that was projected. So the supplemental budget that we submitted, that should be part of the priorities that we submitted for, was to fund these.
So when you say supplemental budget, you're talking about the ARP?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So, just like all the agencies that came prior to you were mentioning about carrying personnel on the ARP, how are you going to sustain that now going on into the future, knowing that ARP is very limited? How are we going to sustain these people, these personnel that you're going to bring on through ARP funding past the date that, until that funding runs out?
A lot of the vacancies that we that we have were defunded initially, like I said, because of the projected shortfalls. But those are current FTEs that we can still fill through the general funds.
Okay, just to make sure that we don't transfer those onto the general fund, because we don't know what the general fund is going to look like for 23 and 24.
No, sir. The general fund FTEs will remain.
All right. Promotions, I know you mentioned about promotions. How's promotions up at DOC? What's the I guess, how do promotions come about? When there's a vacancy, then you ever promote it?
We fill the needs based on, the needs, right? So we are in 2020, when I first came in, I saw the need for management positions specifically because we had a bottleneck at the bottom, as the major mentioned earlier. We have so many corrections officers that have been corrections officers 1 for 20 years, right? We don't have mid-level leadership. We don't have above-level management positions, right? We struggle to manage 200 plus employees with only a handful of command staff officers. So I made it a point to promote, okay? And I saw the need to promote. So we did promote. We promoted 35.
You promoted 35.
Correct.
So when you say management, is that colonels, majors, captains, and lieutenants?
Lieutenants, I believe we had 4. We promoted 4 lieutenants, 4 captains, and 1 major. And if I'm not mistaken, was it 9 CO3s, which are equivalent to sergeant positions. That's
So-
the mid-level.
When was your last promotion? When did you have a promotion? How recent?
Just towards the end of the year,
Third-
last year. And I think there's still some that are pending. I believe I have 4 more positions, 3 lieutenants and 1 major position that's still pending at DOA.
So it goes from CO1 to CO2, CO2 to CO3, CO3 to what? Lieutenant?
Lieutenant,
And then captain,
captain,
major,
major.
and then colonel.
Yes.
So have you done, I guess you skip promotions where you do a CO1 to a captain?
If they're qualified, based on their qualifications on their application, they can.
So have you done any of that? No.
Some of them, I know that I promoted some CO1s to CO3s.
But not to captain?
I promoted some CO2s to lieutenants, and yes, to captains.
From a CO1 to a captain?
I think it was CO2, right, Mayor?
It was a CO1.
CO1? Yes, CO1. There was 1 CO1 and I think a couple of CO2s that were promoted to captain.
So how does an individual go from a CO1 to a captain, bypassing CO2, CO3, lieutenant?
They're vetted through DOA.
Yeah,
The qualifications are there, right? So if they meet the qualifications that's specified on the announcement, then they are eligible and they are put onto that list for interviews.
Did you have any CO2, CO3, or lieutenants that applied for that same position for the captain position that the CO1 got?
Yes, yes, sir.
You did?
Yes, sir.
And
As a matter of fact, we even had 1 CO1 that qualified all the way up from, he put in for CO3, corrections officer, lieutenant, captain and major. He qualified all the way up to major, a CO1.
So how does that affect morale? Knowing that a subordinate, an individual who was just a subordinate to me yesterday, is now my commander, right? I'm a lieutenant. So how does that affect morale to the others and within, I guess, the department as a whole?
It could. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Yeah, it may affect morale if somebody was bypassed that felt that, you know, they probably, you know, deserved it more because they've been in the department, you know, as a CO2 and this guy was a CO1, or he's a CO3 and this guy was a CO1. But it's the criteria as far as being eligible to make that list for promotion, it's not up to us.
But you're the ultimate approving authority, right? I mean, they make the criteria. DOC does DOA does the criteria and send it back to you and says, these are all the individuals that are qualified for this position. Then it's up to you guys now to determine who is going to be promoted to that position.
That's correct, sir.
So then, not just DOA, but DOC management has the final approving authority for the promotion.
They go through the interview process just like everybody else that's eligible in that interview list. Once they make the eligible list that's sent up to us, there's an interview board that they go through, and the interview board makes that recommendation to me. And I make the ultimate decision based on the interview board's
And who's the interview board? Who comprises of the interview board?
I get with my command staff and we talk about who, based on the group that they're in, like for CO3s, you would have one CO.
No, who sits on the panel?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We sit together as a group and then we determine based on the promotion group. If there's a CO3, then we will probably have we have CO1s that are going up for CO3. We have 2 CO3s. We have a management, you know, on that board, and then, you know, that's how it's selected.
I see. Okay. And then, did you have any recent promotions from CO2 to captain, then or major that retired?
Yes.
Yes.
One captain retired.
So I got promoted and then retired after that.
That's correct.
Okay. And the reason why I ask this is, you know, yes, there's a revolving door, and yes, it could be marital problems. Yes, it could be, you know, just tired, but it also could be a morale problem, right? And I think these are things that we also need to look at into ensuring that the Department of Corrections gets exactly everything that they need, especially when it comes to recruiting new personnel on board. But the management also needs to take a look at what's going on and how we promote our individuals, how we promote our staff coming up. Yeah, I mean, I personally would probably say, man, he went from a PO1, a CO1 to captain and just bypassed me. I mean, these are things, you don't need to respond, Director. I'm just now making my statement. And I think these are things that we need to look at to ensure that the Department of Corrections is operating at their full capacity, with, at the same token, not wearing out their individuals. And if problems at home and problems with whatever it may be, their health, but I think problems with morale also takes a toll on an individual and an agency. So I hope that, you know, in future promotions, that when you guys look at, you know, promoting the individuals, yes, it's always good to, you know, go with what DOA recommends and go with that list, but also look at the morale of your troops. Look at the morale of the backbone of the facility, because management is not the backbone of the facility. It's the individuals that run that agency, the individuals that are there constantly. Because I'm sure all of you that are sitting in front of me here today go home probably at 5 o'clock and go back into work at 8 o'clock in the morning, while the individuals there are the ones that's holding down the fort and keeping the fort safe and keeping the people safe there. So, you know, just for future promotions, I guess, you know, take a close look. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's the only questions I have.
Thank you, Senator Ada. No, just based on that question and that statement, I also just want to share that sometimes I think it depends on the person's performance, professionalism, and integrity, which I know is sometimes factored into the selection. And then the other fact was that the employee may be overqualified, but took the one position just to get the foot into the door. And those are, I know case-by-case scenarios. So I just thought I'd share that for the record and know that the listening audience out there continues to listen intently, because I know that there's so many factors that need to be included when the selection process is done. At this time, thank you, Senator Rada. At this time, I'll recognize Senator Tello Taitigui. You are recognized. Okay. Senator Joanne Brown.
Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate the presentation made with regards to the budget, but I do want to elaborate a bit more on what Senator Chris had mentioned and Senator Tony Etta had touched on with regards to CARES funding. It's been several weeks since members of the legislature had met with the governor, granted in a closed-door meeting, but we still are waiting to see what the administration's position is with regards to their priorities with the CARES funding. And you had mentioned that you had made a submittal, and we understand that your desire and need for additional personnel. But again, I think I'll join the chorus here, at least at this table, in relaying our concerns with regards to funding any personnel on CARES funding, because we have no guarantees. And I think I want to make sure we make that clear for every department coming forth, because with our current economic situation, and while we live in a very artificial economy right now as a result of the amount of federal funding that's been infused to the island, I don't think any of us here that have been around a while are going to think that our economy is going to rise to a level in the next year, for example, to address the 2023 budget or the 2024 budget that we're, for 2023 and 2024 years ahead of us. So please be mindful of that. If the administration does go forth and encourage or put positions out there with this money, I think we're going to be in a world of hurt if we're not able to. And right now it doesn't look like we're at that stage economically. And I think we want to ensure that, what we do fund, we have the money for, especially if you're going to put that investment into personnel and hire them. I can't imagine telling someone after all that effort that we don't have the funding. So I want to point that out for you. One of the things I did want to ask, maybe Major Anton again, because we recognize this issue of recruitment, of keeping personnel. But I've also known and had family members that have worked at DOC for many years and have invested their careers there. Is there a change in this challenge? I mean, you've been there many, many years, and you continue to stay at DOC. And there are a number of correction officers that have stayed and put their entire career, and some who are eligible but still continue to work and make that sacrifice. So if I could just ask you, if you don't mind, in your particular case, you mentioned, of course, initially when you started, as I'm sure for anyone, with this work may not have been for you, but for those that have stayed, in spite of the challenges, what do you think it is? What has kept you on board? What do you think has kept other of your coworkers that have actually invested all these years in DOC and continue to, or stayed their whole career to retire from DOC?
Senator, yes, when I first started DOC, I did not plan on staying at DOC. I did what most people did. I applied for all the different law enforcement, customs, police, fire, and I took the test for several of them, but the only one that ever called me was DOC. And even when I got in there, I prayed that GPD would call me soon. And they did. And I went through that process, but I wasn't selected. I went through the process 3 times, and I wasn't selected. I also applied on the federal jobs and other areas, and even in Hawaii I applied. But, I tried to leave several times, but, it just wasn't in the cards. And I liked what I was doing. I liked my job. I liked the people I work with. Despite our challenges, I enjoyed it. And that's why I kind of sticked around. And we have a lot up there right now that are 30 years, 27 years, that are also, they enjoy what they're doing. I mean, despite our challenges, and we kind of learned to get into the job, and we kind of learned to do it and to deal with all these issues, and just kind of get through our days with it. But for some of the younger officers coming in, there's a little bit more opportunities out there. And my wife, unfortunately, my wife supported me, and so those nights not coming home and doing these, there's several days I worked 26 hours. I was on duty for 26 hours, and my wife was mad, really, but she supported me and my family, and and the money was good. For me it was okay. I put my kids to school and got my house built, but for others it's just different, and they love the job, they love the team they're working with, but a lot of times they're not looking to make all that overtime, and they just want to go home. They just want to do their 8 hours and go home at the end of the day. And then when they're at work, they want to feel safe. And for some, that's just not them. Like I said, some of the ones we've recently lost, they're 8 years in the department. They've stuck around, and these are not new. Some of them are not new ones. They've been around 5-10 years, and all of a sudden they're changing career. We lost one almost 15 years, and he left. And he said, well, why am I going to stay? Even my retirement, I have to work until I'm almost 40 years in the government just to properly retire, because he's on the new plan. So to them, these are all different little issues, right? Promotion is one. 20-some years to get promoted. Yeah, lucky he stayed around, but yeah, these are just different issues. I love what I'm doing, but at times, even now, I get frustrated, and I say to myself, I should have left. I have these moments where I'm like frustrated, because not of the job, it's just the lack of resources, and I've been working in that same prison for 27 years and always talked about a new prison, and it just nothing has happened. My pay, I have a master's degree, but my pay is nowhere what I would be getting if I was in GPD with the same education. Okay, I'm not being paid. I'm a lieutenant's pay in GPD right now. That's my pay. Okay, so pay is also an issue, but I've stuck around, and I'll continue to stick around, and hopefully again it'll get better.
So you think your issues are having adequate personnel, the design of the facility? You think certainly having a new corrections facility that's modern and more effective to manage would be maybe the second issue?
Yes, sir. Yes, Senator. Our population is not that big. If you really look at it, we're 558 right now. We'll get up to about 600. We don't have a huge population compared to other jurisdictions, but we're running 18 housing units for that same population. And if we can get a better design and turn 18 housing units into 5 housing units, I guarantee you the morale, the amount of officers that would want to come in and work. You've been up there and you've seen the facility.
Yes, I have, yeah.
The conditions are terrible, and I spent years working on the locking project upgrade that we did, but we only got 3 units. And we made them all nice, and we got cameras in there, and they say you saw those. You saw how it made the officers feel to have cameras to look on the back of the building. The buildings are plagued with blind spots. You cannot see down range. You cannot watch these, have direct sight of these inmates. And I believe that if we do get a better facility, it will cut down on the number of officers we need. It'll also cut down on overtime. It will increase the safety of the inmates that we serve, and more people would more likely want to stick around because the working environment is better. And so that's my goal, and I hope, because I still have 10 more, 15 more years to retire. I'm not going anywhere soon, but I'm hoping before I leave that I could walk into a new facility. Again, we're not looking for no major 1,000-bed right now. Even if we were able to get a 320-bed to 400-bed building where I can put these people there, that would go a long way. And we can do it. It's been done in other jurisdictions in the mainland. It's not impossible. We're just going to need the political backing and the support, because I don't make money. I don't have anything to do with the money, and we're going to need support from all those to make this happen for the inmates and for the staff. So that'll be coming down the road, and I hope we can get you guys' support for that.
No, I appreciate you giving me some insight with regards to that. Director Carbolito, I recognize you've listed all the things you need and you don't have and the personnel you'd like to get filled, but I don't know any director in the government of Guam, and any of us that have served, and some of us have served in several different capacities over the years in the administrative side of the House, where we're ever going to ideally have all the resources we need to do the job we'd like to do. That's where the innovation comes in and why we get tasked by the Governor of Guam to take over these departments. So in your capacity, I mean, you've been there since 2020, and I don't know if this was a desired appointment for you. Do you have plans to continue to serve in this capacity? And if so, what direction are you going to leave as your legacy? What are you looking at, even if you didn't have additional resources? How are you going to take your own creative, innovative capabilities to continue to stay at the helm of DOC? What can you do with what you have?
It's been tough, and I knew coming in that it's going to be tough, you know, taking on this challenge. I understood that challenge, and I'm still here, right? We went through the whole height of the pandemic, the outbreak, the major outbreak. Like I said, I was, you know, I felt, you know, overwhelmed at one point in time, and to be honest with you, my wife doesn't want me to be here. My wife probably wanted me to stay with GPD. That's always been her desire, you know. And I have a couple more years to retire, you know. And my intention is, you know, once I've done what I can for the Department of Corrections to help out, then I want to retire going back to GPD, you know, in a couple of years. That's my plan. But while I'm still here, of course, it would be optimal if we can right-size the Department of Corrections. For the longest time, for decades, it's been that way. I understood that. Looking at the statistics, going back and looking at all the documents, the Department of Corrections has never been really attended to as far as, or recognized the way it should be, as far as right-sizing that department. This overtime issue that's before us today, or even when I first came in, I made it known. It's been here for decades. The Department of Corrections has not been attended to or looked at, you know, as a priority for the government. And I don't think anybody has hired as much as I've hired since I came in. I hired 70 plus people. But like I said, it's not enough. It's like, it's never enough. Every time you try to do something, right, and you feel like you've accomplished something, there's more. There's more that keeps coming and popping up. Every day, there's more things that pop up, you know. There's more issues that need to be addressed. The infrastructure there. The major alluded to it. The design itself takes a lot of manpower to man those facilities because of the way it's designed. It's too spread out. You have 18 units that's spread out. So of course it's going to take more manpower, right? Because they're too far apart. If you need help, you're going to be asking for help from a distance, as opposed to if you build a new.
Director Carbolito, I don't mean to interject. I understand exactly what you're telling me. I've seen the prison. I've also worked there with the prisoners doing conservation farming when I was at the university for several years. I'm familiar with the layout and the challenges with regards to that. The question I'm asking you is, in your capacity as a director, what are you going to bring to the table, or what have you brought to the table to manage, recognizing the challenges? I know there's some more critical jobs in the government than others, and certainly the work that you're doing is one of them, because I mean, you know, maybe it's at the bottom of the list because a lot of people in our community don't see the same priority when they've been victimized by crime. The sympathy sometimes it's not there, even though we know that there are laws and things with regards to, you know, rights of prisoners and also, more importantly, also wanting to ensure the safety of your personnel that work at the prison. We see all that. We understand that. But for you, in terms of your leadership direction for the time that you're there, because I've heard a lot this morning about the challenges, and I'm sure we'll hear it at every hearing, but for you in particular, what would you like to do with what you have for the time that you're there? What is your legacy that you're going to leave? Because prior to you, we've had a couple other directors come and go. The most recent one prior is, you know, a retired FBI agent who you think that, you know, they got the gusto. So recognizing those challenges, we understand it, and we understand the realities of it, but I just want to ask you that question in terms of your particular, what are you bringing to the table that you would like to see in your leadership direction for the time that you're there?
I think the main one is already ongoing, the main project, which is the new prison, right?
Okay.
The master plan, we finally got it going. We started it during my time, okay? We got that through the procurement process, which was stuck since 2016. So we finally got it out of there, and now it's ongoing. We've already been through 2 phases. Okay, the vendors coming in and out of Guam, right, to come back and continue the 14-phase project, and they'll have a report done by August of this year. So we're going to know by that time what the recommendation will be, whether it be to build and improve the current structure that we do have here, or build a new prison, based on their recommendation on the assessments that they've done through the 14-phase assessment process.
Well,
So that's one of the biggest tickets.
Well, I will look forward to that in August, and then I guess once we see that, that would be a good idea to see how we move forward, how do we finance it, and what's the best,
Right.
either modify or, you know, build a new facility. I appreciate your input. One other question I wanted to ask, does this affect your ability to do inspections for contraband in terms of your current personnel? Because we don't hear as much anymore, either that or, you know, the problems have disappeared, but you know, I used to previously hear almost on a daily, weekly basis about contraband being brought into the prison and being intercepted by your officers. I mean, we've even had officers most recently there that have been arrested and convicted, and, you know, talk about greener pastures. Even when they're convicted or plead to official misconduct, they still get greener pastures in the government of Guam, because we don't right now prohibit that in the law, even though I'm sure many of our citizens out there are taken aback when they see and hear about that. So how is that in your, has this limits with regards to your personnel impacted? I mean, you don't need to tell us when you do inspections, because I'm sure you kind of keep that undercover, but
Yes,
how has that affected your ability to address that? Because we just, and the public don't hear much about it.
No, it's not as bad as it was, you know, beforehand, but we still do random, you know, searches, right, with all the different posts as needed, and we still have contraband that's being thrown overboard, you know, through the fence over there and even down here in the facility. But fortunately, we've been catching most of those, right? We've been detecting it, and then now we have the new paytail system that gives us the ability to closely monitor all these phone calls that used to be unmonitored and was probably one of the biggest factors in bringing in contraband. So that's a good capability that we have based on the new paytail system that we recently implemented. We have the commissary also, right, that we just, so, you know, that might also help ease some of the anxiety with the prisoners, trying to get things thrown in, right, into the facility that's, you know, that they couldn't probably get because of the COVID situation, because of the restrictions that we had. But we're getting the drive-through incomings now, and then we have that commissary that we're trying to get out of procurement to implement, which is pretty much an online concept, right? Where you have a kiosk in the facility. You can order through that kiosk, whatever you need as far as, whichever is legally, allowed. And then the vendor just brings it in and distributes it in a given time frame.
Just quickly, so do you think the COVID situation may have reduced contraband coming into the prison just because there were limits to what could be brought in for that time?
Yes,
And
that
then you
contributed.
Okay, and then you believe the setup of this commissary, if prisoners are able to access for their needs, toiletries and other things that they may want to getting it through the commissary again will be another means of reducing versus friends or family,
That's
bringing
correct.
these things to hand over to them
Yes.
that might have interesting things inside toothpaste and stuff like that.
That's correct. That's correct,
Okay.
Senator.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you very much for providing your comments to my questions. I appreciate it.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Chadwick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Major Uggan, for being here and the story of your life. It was very interesting. I wondered how you landed at DOC, one of the oldest employees I know there. Of course, Chief Carvalho, thank you so much, and the ASO, Clarissa Briggs. I appreciate your time today. And our Deputy of DOC, Mr. Camacho, good to see you again, sir. Always good.
I apologize.
Hi,
I
Bob.
had a court hearing.
No worries. A lot of the questions were asked. I'm going to try and make this really short. We've been here a while. And I do have a question with regards to, on the staffing, this is for Clarissa. Maybe she can help me with this, or anyone really. It's this section on the staffing pattern where next to a name, for instance, this one says Dave Santos makes and then it says HL04-21, but it has in parentheses 3.5%. And I'm seeing maybe only about, 4 people that have 3.5% on one. What does the 3.5% mean? 4 or 5.
What is it?
I wish I can give you a page number, but it's on the agency staffing pattern current. It says plus 3.5%. You can look at the numbers. I shouldn't even have said the names. Number 12, number 10, number 18.
I don't see what you're talking about here, but is it regards to her pay?
Yeah, it's right next to their name. It has the name of the incumbent, and then if you look at number 10.
Oh, okay. So after step 20, they're no longer on the pay scale. So that's the percentage on top of the salary.
Oh, I see. Okay, and that's just a step pay scale of 3.5%.
Yes.
Sounds complicated to try and figure that one out, based on just the regular scale, pay scale. You mentioned earlier, Chief, regarding GMH. It's always been a long-standing issue with DOC paying their services to the hospital, and I'm glad to hear that you're being helped out. It does say that there is a 2.5 for FY 2022. However, in 2021 it was 2.8. That's a difference of 396,000. Are you anticipating getting less but doing more, or are we going to have to find the 398,000 to offset what was given in the 2.8 million 986,956? Or I know it's a grant, it's given from DOI, but it is 2 different numbers in 2 different years. This year and then anticipated for next year, which is lower. I don't see numbers really going lower because DOC has always had a big problem with paying their bill at GMH.
Lapse. The remaining balance would be probably covered with the continuous appropriations through lapse funds.
Okay, and in your budget request, you have requested for that $396 difference, $396,000 difference. See, Clarissa, I'm looking at 2021 at 2.8, right? And then I'm looking at the FY22 anticipated for the GMH consolidated agreement at 2.5. It's lower. I don't understand it going lower because, you know, with recession and everything going up, and plus I don't see the Emirates population lowering either.
The funding for GMH will be covered by the DOI, so
Right.
we're not requesting it. We're not requesting for that amount.
I know you're not requesting it. My point is that the numbers are different from FY21 compared to FY22. A difference of 396 less from FY21. FY22 compared to FY21. So my question is the 396,000 difference, which is less than 21, will you be requesting, is that requested in your budget?
At this point, we are projecting lapse for
Okay.
this fiscal year,
Okay,
so that's the reason for the decrease.
you're
Senator,
projecting lower,
yeah,
you're projecting lower.
Senator, so it varies every fiscal year, and the projection of 2.5 is the average cost for the GMH MOA.
How much was it in 2021? Or, well, we're not even finishing in this year, but in, how about 2020?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it averages somewhere, from my understanding from reading some of the documents, the previous documents from the FY20, 19 and 18, it was somewhere around 2.4.
Okay,
And then I know we got appropriated 2.8 for 21.
okay, so you should have some
Lapse.
surplus, okay.
Correct.
And will you be able, because it is DOI, well, because you have some lapse, you're going to place that lapse over into 2022?
That's
You're going to
correct.
be able to cover that?
That's correct.
Okay, and it's in your budget bill to ask for those lapses?
That's correct. Senator.
Okay, you did request that, okay. So we'll know that OFB is there, so on the side, so we have to make sure that any lapses from the appropriate amount of 2.896956, if there's any funding left over, which is predicted at 2.4, there should be a little over than about $396,000. So we're going to have to make sure that's in the budget bill. Okay, I'm just making it in for the record and looking at it OFB that it's included. We usually do that anyways. And then you said that in FY 2022, it's anticipated Department of Interior is going to cover this cost. Is this something you anticipate that's going to cover every year? After this year, after 2022?
No, because there was a year, I think that it wasn't, just like last year. We had to request for it through regular general funds. It was appropriated through general funds. The 2.8 was general funds last year.
It's obviously a grant. It's obvious that someone has to send in this request. So I'm not sure why it wasn't done in 2021, but I'm glad to hear that it's going to be done in 2022 and hope that you do that for 2023 too as well. Start now, because I've even heard from GPD where they missed out on funding because they missed the deadline. So I'd hate for DOC to miss the deadline on anything like that. I'm sure Deputy Director Camacho is real good at doing those grants and putting them in on time. So I appreciate that. Okay. Okay, ARA funding, it was talked about ARA funding. It was talked about, you know, the legislature, I was hoping you would show up for our resolution public hearing that we had to advocate for the $20 million that this legislature has decided to put aside for DOC in the ARP funding. But you still have an opportunity. The window is open to send in a testimony in favor of that, because we all know it's about, providing a new facility that's going to assist, and it's already been mentioned several times, how it'll assist in recruitment, how it'll assist in retention for our officers. And I appreciate the PowerPoint presentation you brought up, but there was one thing that was missing in this PowerPoint presentation, and I think you touched on it when Senator Brown asked you the question, what you're anticipated as, to make your mark on your position as a director at DOC. But usually in these PowerPoint presentations, it shows the accomplishments that you've made, what they have made and the intention of moving forward, and what they've been working on to better the agency and department, especially with the huge issue of retention. I didn't see that in your presentation. And that's, that's not very helpful, especially when we're here to advocate for DOC, to provide you things that you need in order to have an agency that's running well and doing good for the people of Guam. So I hope you do plan on sending us all your plan on what you're going to do to better the agency and bring into retention. So that's desperately needed, and greatly appreciate if you can do that, Chief. It'd be helpful, a plan. Other than that, I think that's it. All my colleagues asked for them. I really appreciate your time again. Thank you, Major again, Deputy Director Camacho, Clarice, and Chief Carbolito. Si Diyos masi, be safe, and thank you for the work that you do to keep our community safe. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you, Senator Tadigui. Senator Ada, I understand you have a follow-up question. You may proceed.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Director, I just have two follow-up questions that I forgot to ask in my first round. Do you currently have any officers, uniform officers, performing civilian work?
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
And what, you don't have no civilian employees to perform that task so that we can keep our uniform officers in the...
No, we don't. And I think some of those are indicated on the slides. Like the supply officer, that's performed by a corrections officer. And then the information system is performed by Major Agustin and a parole officer.
So you don't have no MIS civilians, or OTEC can't provide you that professional help? I mean, they were here the other day and said they'd reach out to all the agencies. So have you reached out to OTEC to provide you that professional help?
We do collaborate with OTEC when needed. It's just that we need the information management systems personnel there at the facility when the issues arise. So that's a position that's actually required at DOC.
So, but are those allocated for civilians or uniform?
It's a civilian position, sir.
So then, I mean, if you intend to keep a uniform officer there, do you plan to just drop those civilian positions? And
it's one of our needs that I indicated that I would like to hire for.
okay, and then also night differential. How do your officers qualify for a night differential?
It's 10%.
Yeah, I know it's 10%,
right.
But how do they qualify for it? Do they have to?
They have to work.
They have to work
starting
the night shift.
Yes, correct. 6 p.m. I believe it starts at 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
So is that for the entire year, or how does the night differential?
Whenever they're on duty during those hours, then they're eligible to receive the 10%.
So they only for the nights they work they receive the pay.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, I see. So are you allocating any, so do you like give an officer, okay, well, Officer Duenas is going to work 300 days, so we're going to go ahead and just project 300 days of night differential so that we can place that into the budget? Or do you actually put what is worked?
So the shifts are rotated, throughout the year, throughout the fiscal year, but those projections are based on how we rotate the shifts.
Okay, that's great, and that's good to know. But, so everyone that's receiving night differential pay is entitled to night differential pay?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's the only questions I had.
Senator Ada. Is there anyone else here who has not testified who wishes to testify? If not, there being none, this committee will conclude this budget hearing. I'll do a public reminder to my colleagues and to the listening audience. The committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. San Agustin at gmail.com or to my office located at Rand Care Building, 2nd floor, Suite 3, 761 South Marine Corps Drive, Tamuning, Guam, 96931. Sizos Masi for your attendance and participation in today's hearing, and for those at home, Undunkalan na Sizos Masi for watching this budget hearing on Bill 55-36 COR relative to the Department of Corrections is now adjourned, and the time is 11:25 a.m. Sana Masi.